What should everyone be panicking about right now, but no one seems to care? Story 1. Health insurance companies are acquiring one another at an alarming rate. We're going single payer, but not in the way we'd want and without any of the conversations that should be happening. Also, these firms purchase and develop mental health clinics. They are pushing independent clinicians out of the market. They promise easy access to services, which end up being horrible for both the client and the clinician. Low pay, no benefits, and high turnover. Clients are matched with folks who are inexperienced, leave the platform without proper clinical termination, and a bad experience, which then becomes a barrier to access care. Story 2. Literacy rates are dropping across the United States. Many students slip through the educational system with inferior reading comprehension skills. Functional illiteracy is a real thing, and its spreading would help if they teach phonics instead of that nasty discredited 3-queuing method. I found out about all this when I went to help my younger stepson with his reading homework and thought I was having a stroke reading the instructions. It looked a lot like the more advanced section of Hooked on Phonics, but specifically instructed him to cover up the story and not at any point read it. He was to answer the questions based only on the picture, the title, and guessing, when Googling, and was absolutely horrified to find out this crap isn't uncommon. Story 3. Water scarcity is the big one. Huge regions are running out of reliable fresh water, but it is not treated with the same urgency as other crises. Aquifers are being drained faster than they can refill. Rivers are shrinking, and climate change is making droughts worse. It ties directly to food security because farming depends on water access. It's even happening places you wouldn't expect. Chicago just won a $4.8 million lawsuit against Trump Tower because they were illegally using up to 21 million gallons of water per day without proper permits or the equipment to make sure they weren't killing fish and aquatic wildlife with their pump systems. Spoiler alert, they were killing thousands a day. It has been ongoing since 2008. Think about the ecological impact of just that one building. We have lost our way. Story 4. Mass insect extinctions. Grasshoppers, man. I grew up on about 4 acres. My dad would grow some stuff. Corn, asparagus, strawberries, etc. You couldn't walk in the field without stepping on a grasshopper. I can't tell you the last time I've seen one. I was told by a person at a nature reserve that climate change has resulted in grass growing faster, but because of that, it has fewer nutrients per bite that a grasshopper can eat, and they can only eat so much volume, so they just cannot survive. Story 5. Rent, more specifically, the qualifications needed to rent minimum wage. Amounts and cost of living overall. I feel awful for single parents trying their hardest to make ends meet and can't make 3 times the rent to get qualified for the size they need, even if they could afford it, yet still making too much to qualify for income-based housing. It's a big cycle of crap. Story 6. Consumerism and the mounting piles of waste and clothing everywhere from disposable brands and waste from electronics because companies are intentionally using glue where they didn't before to make it impossible to repair, thus making consumers buy more. It drives me absolutely crazy. My kids have been given so many toys for birthdays and Christmases that my house is overflowing with junk. They have toys in their bedroom, a whole playroom full. And then the toys that don't fit are in the basement. But if I try to tell people not to buy them anything, they look at me like I am a terrible mother. Since when did it become the norm that kids need all this crap? My kids play regularly, with maybe 20% of their toys. Story 7. Insects. We've had massive decreases in insect populations, and we're heading to the point of no return. But people don't notice because of shifting baselines. Shifting baselines. Say there is a flower bush in your grandparents' house. Every time they look at it, there are 50 butterflies. Your parents grew up looking at that bush and seeing only 25 butterflies. You grew up looking at that bush and there were only 10 butterflies. Today there are 4, you think. Well, 10 down to 4 isn't a massive drop. Your parents think 25 down to 4, that's quite a bit. But your grandparents think 50 down to 4, that's a massive loss. Story 8. It's the most insidious hidden thing. Things that no one sees. One such example is the monetization of our time and attention. Another is corporations leveraging assets belonging to outside entities as assets of their own. Assets of outside entities such as public goods, other entities' intellectual or physical property, built on equity. Think of anything ever created through hard work and investment by individual entities, humans, or groups or organization or the country itself. Some specifics, Google just taking news, Amazon using our public roads and national highway system. Think they've really paid for the wear and tear on our roads and bridges, the added traffic and infrastructure requirements? These are easy samples that could go on and at one stop and really think about it. Story 9, the environment. It's an obvious one, but there's only like a decade or so of viable fishing left in the oceans due to acidification. And once the nations that predominantly rely on fishing to sustain their populations start to struggle, we're all going to feel it. Additionally, drinking water is becoming a problem, and they will not tell us how bad it really is. Along with the rapidly increasing temperatures along the equator, there's going to be a mass population exodus in the coming years, and it's going to happen fast. Be prepared for rapid change. Story 10, the ever-expanding digital police state in the US and elsewhere. The complete breakdown of online privacy and the increased centralization of both state and corporate data collection has reached disturbing levels, and the entire issue appears to be completely dead in the American political ecosystem. Everyone just seems to accept that we now live under a police state with a centralized mass surveillance and data collection apparatus. Anonymous is dead and resistance is futile. Story 11. The one that really worries me right now is hurricanes. People know, generally, about global warming, the ice caps melting, all of that. But I don't think it's been made clear enough what that means. It's not just the oceans rising. It's not just the sun feeling hotter. Bigger storms form. They last longer. Hurricane season lasts longer, stretching deeper into the end of summer. And the services that provide warning and aid to vulnerable communities were gutted. This is going to destroy the Southeast US. Story 12. I hate to be this guy, but post-viral illness, long COVID is only going to get worse. Consider the millions that have it as the canary in the coal mine. In many cases, the initial infection is now so mild that people don't even know they were infected. Weeks to months later, they're trying to figure out why they developed insert chronic symptoms here. I bet the number of people with LC is far higher than known at this point. Story 13, dropping literacy rates have turned a lot of people into incredibly ignorant and oftentimes willingly insolent idiots. More people would be up in arms about all of these things mentioned in this comment section if people were actually taught to care about being aware of the world and taught that learning is actually enjoyable. Having obnoxious propaganda shoved down everyone's throats in US schools about how well educated we are and how lucky we are to have such great institutions for us, when more than half of the students in the past 2 graduating classes from my local school have had less than a 50% graduate. The school I went to is considered a blue ribbon school too, so the government thinks that it's one of the better ones too. Story 14. Ticks became a big problem for me back in 2020. I've had to take doxycycline 3 or 4 times between 2000 and 2020, but by the end of 2020, I had one in a spot most men might not notice it. By the time I did, it was already gone, leaving a major rash with no sign of a tick. The doctor did a blood test, but said it wasn't from a tick. Meanwhile, I couldn't walk downstairs for 3 months and used a painter extender pole to get to the bathroom. My joints felt like I had glass in them and was confused, tired, and sleeping odd times. Finally, I got to a blood specialist and they said it was a blood disease and gave me high doses of doxycycline and finally could walk again. Being someone who hikes, hunts mushrooms and rocks, and of course camps for weeks in the woods, I said goodbye to New England and live over 10,000 elevation now. I never see ticks here and mosquitoes are pretty much non-existent. Be careful out there and check every inch of your body and ask the wifey to check those spots you can't see. Never mind how embarrassing. Trust me. Story 15. We're all going to die. A boring, basic death in between 20 and 60 years. Having struggled throughout our lives to keep our heads above water, and we aren't going to be saved from this fate by any exciting cataclysm. We are all absurdly pessimistic about the fate of the world, while maintaining an even more absurd optimism about our own personal chances of survival. When we get there, it will not feel like it was enough. That's what we should be panicking about. Story 16. The stupidity and laziness of this society. It's like a lot of people, mostly younger generation, forgot how to talk. They're great at texting, but they verbally suck. ChatGPT figures out issues for you if you let it. Self-driving cars, big yet stuck at driving. People are driven by the amount of likes they get. The media sucks, but people believe it. They are actually dumb enough to believe it sometimes. It's just sad to watch. I mean, I am guilty. I know I rely on my phone a lot. What's even more sad is that I prefer to DoorDash something so I don't have to deal with idiots out there. Just don't have the patience out there anymore. Story 17, I think everything honestly, but people are tired. Since 2020-ish, it's been one thing after another, and it's burnt out everyone. The state of the UK is a big one, having a terrible government that drained its people for 14 years, rolling into another parliament party just wanting to make bigger messes. It's just a big tired mess. The state of the USA is just a bag of crazy cats. Don't even know how to unravel that mess. And the general state of the ongoing wars, immigration, it's just frustrating and tiring now. Story 18, deforestation, not just in the Amazon, not just over there, global deforestation. Yes, people know forests matter for clean air, water, food, wood, and even making their own weather. But here's what most don't realize. We have almost no resources to actually rebuild forests once they're lost. Money is scarce. Native seed is vanishing. Nurseries don't exist at the scale needed. Labor is short, especially in hotter, drier regions where forests are collapsing fastest. So when climate change cranks up disasters like megafires and insect outbreaks, we don't just lose trees, we lose the ability to bring them back. That's the terrifying part. Forests aren't renewable if we don't have the infrastructure to renew them. Story 19, pharmaceutical supplies. The shortages of all sorts of medicines is very real and very terrifying. My most recent example, 2 weeks ago, my husband had surgery. They thought they'd have to cancel his operation because they were out of anesthesia because of the shortages. I've dealt with pharmacies not being able to order my meds because they're not manufacturing enough. Why can't they make more? Government regulations. But why are we limiting the amount of things like anesthesia? Story 20. The incorporation of AI into everything, combined with new policies requiring people to upload their government data to access sites and govs trying to push this more. No one seems to remember internet safety, and that your data being online is a bad thing. Add Palantir in their dealings with the US government. They're trying to erase everyone's privacy and no one cares because AI can make your grocery list and talk to you like a spouse. Story 21, like everything going on in America. And I mean everything. People are losing their minds seeking therapy from AIBC. Real human doctors are scant or unaffordable. Everything else is also unaffordable. We're reopening Japanese internment camps to store human beings who did nothing wrong. It's a horror show. Our insurance personally has been lapsed for over a month because of an employer mistake by my husband's HR administrator, and I've paid hundreds out of pocket for meds and to go to an urgent care, where they said I was so stressed I needed to see a cardiologist and a neurologist. It's only a matter of time before this gets worse. Still gotta work and run a household. Absolutely nightmarish living conditions over here. Nothing is right. Story 22, the overall and fast decline of our food and grocery stores. A lot of places are having mass recalls, stocking expired food and selling it on clearance, and overall low in stocks of things. I live in a major city, and the grocery stores are either barren or in complete disarray. Like entire cases of cold products being thrown in an open cooler display that's off. All of that wasted or dangerous if bought. The food I am buying also goes bad and begins to smell or discolor within days when the expiry is weeks out, and am following proper storage and safety guidelines. Story 23, the wholesale purchasing of water rights to entire aquifer freshwater sources by hedge funds and corporate hats. People aren't paying attention. This is part of authoritarian economics and will set up all people to be under the thumb of capitalistic control in order to receive a naturally given right to fresh water. We need to make access to clean, fresh water an unalienable right everywhere. It must be publicly owned if it must be owned at all. Story 24. Common people are losing the knowledge and space to grow their own food. Watching video media is more and more often used as a proxy for experiences you haven't actually had, like climbing a mountain or having a conversation with friends or a significant other. And AI companies will capitalize further on that. You shouldn't be panicking because everyone, including myself, is too caught up in making the best of things that we aren't creating the narrative and making cool crap like neighborhood tree forts and universal health care. Story 25. Tick bites cause alpha-gal syndrome, meat allergy related to the alpha-gal sugar molecule, in exponentially larger numbers than they were 10 or 15 years ago, when AGS was considered a rare condition. Though this could be seen as a good thing, factory farming, sustainability concerns, etc., the impact could be very deadly, as some people have delayed anaphylactic reactions several hours later. Alpha-gal is also in many everyday household products. EpiPens are already unaffordable for many and might be even more cost-prohibitive as AGS becomes ever more common. Story 26. Your data. Everyone has been duped into believing that the holder owns it. Your data is being used to predict you, stalk you, control you, and with AI this will be impossible for you to do anything about. We need legislation that puts the control of your data about you back in your hands. If it's about you in any way, you should know what it is, where it is, who is holding it, how are they storing it, how are they protecting it, who has access to it, and why. I tell you, this is the most important thing we should all be worried about. Without control, these giant data centers are going to be modeling everything about your future, and you will have no say in your life. Story 27. Climate change is going to create a human-related mass extinction event, and we can't stop it. It's too late. What we should be doing is equipping our individual homes and our cities to make them more livable in this hell we hath wrought upon ourselves, but that's not happening. Even small things like setting aside land to promote the regrowth of native trees, not watering your lawn, let it die for God's sake, painting the roofs of buildings with reflective paint, create incentives for new buildings to use gravel parking lots which absorb less heat and release less heat later, equipping government buildings in Section 8 housing with reflective curtains to minimize the amount of AC needed. We should all switch, but if people really don't want to, they won't. Creating more reliable public transportation, adjusting working hours so people who do physical labor aren't hauling heavy materials under the noon sun, devising programs to help people move from high-risk areas like coastal Florida, where houses are becoming uninsurable with the increased hurricane activity, and finding more long-term sustainable food solutions. And there are very basic things we could do tomorrow, like setting up more canopies over busy walkways to minimize the direct sun effects and creating incentives to plant native area grasses and trees. Story 28. Rubber. Short history. All latex trees are genetically identical. The native South American latex trees have been completely wiped out in South America because of a fungus leaf blight. The plantations moved to Southeast Asia. If this or a different harmful fungus is introduced there, there will be no cure, no solution. Sooner or later, all plantations will die. Spores are microscopic and travel with the air, hundreds of miles. There is no alternative to it. Aircraft, trucks, cars, any machines used in factories rely on rubber, tires, seals, hoses. There is no alternative to natural latex. No artificial stuff can come even close to its performance. If these plantations die, the economy will crash on a scale that would be unimaginable, and the risks of it happening are not low at all. Story 29. IA is quickly deconstructing both the quality of the information on the internet and the trustworthiness of digital media. I can't trust that a video is real or that the information I'm reading is accurate, because we're losing ways to validate it, or it's simply becoming too convincing. It might be a little crazy, but I don't think it'll be long before I can watch my AI-generated episode of Cops while framing my neighbor for doing illicit activities with AI-generated security footage that corroborated with AI-generated digital evidence. Maybe that's already happening, I don't know, and that's terrifying. How long was it before you knew the bunnies weren't real? Story 30. The fertility rate. Probably the biggest economic and social issue of our time, and yet people act like you're some kind of weirdo if you bring it up. I keep on hearing this, but then look around and see species extinction, pollution, overfishing, eutrophication, depletion of aquifers, desertification, PFAS, microplastics, loss of arable land, honeybee mass extinctions, microfauna mass extinctions, deforestation, etc. And I am just not sure that his quarterly growth at all costs, keep on consuming to stoke the fires, is a good idea. It just seems like the rent-seeking shareholder class is the one fear-mongering about this, and the more we continue in this vein of resource depletion and not pricing in externalities, the harder the landing we're going to eventually have. Most of the pro-natalist stuff I hear is from the same people who benefit from unbridled consumption, inequality, and the never-ending descent into debt. They all know it's unsustainable and have backup plans to purchase Greenland, make bunkers in New Zealand, or leave the planet for Mars. but they continue to feed the beast up until the very end. I don't know, but maybe the human race will survive with fewer product choices, less pointless entertainment, less luxury crap, and actually taxing the unfathomably rich in order to educate the poor and reinvigorate the working and middle class. Nope. Let's just carry on in the same direction and get the same results. Story 31. Wealth inequality is rising year after year exponentially. What this means is that wealth from the bottom is going to the top, and the top is hoarding that wealth almost exclusively in assets that do not trickle down to the bottom. If this continues, there will no longer be a middle class. The world will be split into a minority of highly wealthy individuals and a majority in poverty. This also means asset prices will continue to rise. The stock prices will go up, housing will continue to get more expensive, super luxury goods will get more expensive, and you, the regular person, will own nothing and will not be able to do anything about it. Story 32. The blandness of AI. I specifically am targeting the blandness. I am not attacking AI directly, in a tin hat style. I mean, just look at cars, for example. The hint for the perfect cost to build along with aerodynamics has meant we have near lookalikes across the board of cars. We are already seeing online news outlets using AI to churn out news articles, and they all read the same. Even sports reports. Once they crack scripts, we shall see the car equivalent for TV shows and movies. Boring and bland. Story 33. Climate change. People talk about it but aren't doing anything about it. Here in the UK, we are currently having one of the driest summers ever. This has huge knock-on effects, particularly the second issue people aren't talking about, water scarcity. Currently, reservoirs are at an all-time low. We are in a drought with no rain incoming, but people are still treating Scotland and the UK as if we have an abundance of water. We don't anymore, and people really need to start watching what they are using. Story 34. Republicans, officials, and influencers are starting their crusade against birth control, spouting conspiracy theories and unbacked side effects. My guess is they will pull its FDA approval due to side effects. They're already starting to put restrictions on the day after pill, which is just a strong form of birth control. If you weren't around for the Tea Party era, the day after pill was a huge talking point. They called it the abortion pill, even though it doesn't abort anything. It just stops pregnancy from happening in the first place. So buckle up, ladies. The trade wives are already trying to say how horrible it is for our bodies. Story 35. The National Guard being deployed by the president to arrest people for things like vagrancy. Is literally sending the US military into domestic areas to round up homeless people. That's flat out Dictator 101, and everyone just kind of watches and says, okay, you can't even have a good protest because, again, hell, just send in troops. That should definitely have people panicking, but at this point, I guess we're just kind of used to it.